All right. How we start this out is with the third step prayer. Rob, if you'll help us with that.
Of course, on page 63 of your big book, if you want to turn to it and follow along. Leo, who makes it all possible?
God.
God, I offer myself to thee, to build with me and do with me as thou wilt. Relieve me of the bondage of self, that I may better do thy will. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to those I would help of thy power, thy love, and thy way of life. May I do thy will always.
Good prayer. Good prayer. Okay. So we are in the midst of the ninth chapter, the family afterward. We've just gotten into it. Probably we're on page 124. And we'll go ahead and just back up one paragraph, Rob, and we'll go up to this painful past.
You got it, Leo. Page 124, everybody. This painful past may be of infinite value to other families still struggling with their problem. We think each family which has been relieved owes something to those who have not. And when the occasion requires, each member of it should be only too willing to bring former mistakes, no matter how grievous, out of their hiding places. Showing others who suffer how we were given help is the very thing which makes life seem so worthwhile to us now. Cling to the thought that in God's hands, the dark past is the greatest possession you have, the key to life and happiness for others. With it, you can avert death and misery for them.
Yeah, so what we're trying to kind of get across here is a couple of things. One of which is that it's important to remember that service to others, helping others is one of the primary goals of recovery and for that continued strength in recovery. And we're not just talking now about the alcoholic who is going through this process and or has recovered. We're talking about the family themselves. Once they've been through this process alongside the alcoholic, they've essentially got something that would be beneficial or helpful to other people. And if they have the opportunity, and we've talked about this at length in the past, today we're kind of, we're not necessarily as connected as we were back in the 1930s with regard to how families interacted and how they shared their homes and with each other, their families, their lives, etc. We're a little bit more isolated, if you will, in this regard. So I'm not going to say that it's actually a slam dunk that this is going to be something, but it is important that if you have if you have the opportunity to reach out and actually assist another member of another family that's going through the same thing, then you should take that. It should be, kind of a requirement. The second thing I think to bring out in this particular paragraph is that, we should be only too willing to bring former mistakes, no matter how grievous, out of their hiding places. This is also a testament to the open, honest kind of communication that is so required in order to make this a successful journey through this program of recovery. And so that's an important thing for the family members and the alcoholic to understand, that there should be created a safe environment for these type of things to come up. And it only true healing is going to happen when people feel safe enough and have the confidence to be able to bring that kind of thing up. And obviously, any kind of is, taking the seriousness of everything as far as the key to life and happiness for others. With it, you can avert death and misery for them. So what we're actually trying to do is to avert and, stave off death. Obviously, the alcohol can cause that to be so premature and take people that we love and care for at an earlier time than would be necessary. So kind of a couple of three messages here, but it's really more for the family at this point, as opposed to just the alcoholic. Rob?
Yeah, use the past to help others. The past teaches us, and we use our experience to help others. Remember, now we have Al-Anon, we have Alateen, and as Wes said last week, Aladog.
Right.
My dog was barking last week, so that's why I threw that in. But the whole idea is, you know, the alcoholic helps the other alcoholic. Okay. The wife or the spouse of the alcoholic helps another spouse. How did they deal with things? How did they get through it? You know, but as Leo said, back in 1939, when they got together for meetings, the spouse came along and they would have meetings, and so people could talk back and forth. Nowadays, we go to the fellowship, and a lot of times it's only the alcoholics. Very rarely does the spouse come along. So it's a little more difficult in order for spouses to, you know, interact with each other. But I know that when I first came into the fellowship, I brought my wife with me to meetings because she wanted to know why, you know, I was enjoying these meetings so much. So I brought her. So she got to meet some of the people I was hanging out with, made things a lot easier. But she also got to talk to some of the other spouses. There weren't a lot, but she did get to meet with some of them, and they could at least talk. Because I tried to get my wife to go to Al-Anon and she didn't want to. So, you know, but she did get to talk to some of these other people, and she got to ask questions. I didn't get involved in that. That's between her and the other people. But I just wanted to throw that in there. But we use our experience, and they can use their experience to help others. It is possible to dig up past misdeeds so they become a blight, a veritable plague. For example, we know situations in which the alcoholic or his wife have had love affairs. In the first flush of spiritual experience, they forgave each other and drew closer. The miracle of reconciliation was at hand. Then, under one provocation or another, the aggrieved one would unearth the old affair and angrily cast its ashes about. A few of us have had these growing pains, and they hurt a great deal. Husbands and wives have sometimes been obligated to separate for a time until new perspective, new victory over hurt pride could be won. In most cases, the alcoholic survived this ordeal without relapse, but not always. So we think that unless some good and useful purpose is to be served, past occurrences should not be discussed.
Yeah, so there is a very bumpy road ahead with regard to recovery, and it's going to be one that needs a lot of attention. And I almost would say that, you know, you want to set up a mutual respect, and I'm just shy of saying kind of ground rules that things are going to be safe to be talked about. We understand that there's going to be hurt. We know that there's going to be some pain, but we also agree that we're not going to use those at the grievances as weapons. Now, easier said than done by a wide margin. Okay, so bottom line is that we're basically saying that you know, it is possible to dig up past misdeeds so they become blight or a veritable plague, as I would say, as a weapon, and it as can cause some destruction. So my point I want to make is that, you know, if this stuff comes up, and it's most likely it's going to, it's time for the two sides to kind of take a break, whether they do as they say here, where it's a potential separation for a period of time. You know, certainly some things, and for each person's own emotional health, especially, I think that's something that has to be considered. But if it's any way to get professional help, or to just basically take a break, or if they're able to rise above it, and that's easier said than done, I know. But if they're able to rise above it and be able to kind of talk about it, and once it's talked about, be able to just set it aside and not go back to it because of the potential pitfalls that come with that, is an important message that they're trying to get here. But it is something that that can cause problems. Now, for the alcoholic, it's a risk. It's a big risk. You know, it's, as I say, the alcoholic could get, you know, bludgeoned with this information, turn around and feel very hurt and pained by it, and then think, you know, in a rash kind of thought process, you know, get the heckets, as I say, and decide that, you know, if this isn't going to work, if I'm not going to be able to, you know, overcome these problems, then why am I doing this? I might as well be drinking. And that is probably the worst thing that can happen here, with regard to these type of issues and challenges and stuff. And so, the strength of recovery really comes to bear here, and it's an important message, and one that I think a sponsor needs to be acutely aware of when something like this comes up. You obviously want to avert and do whatever's possible to avert this person, falling back in the bottle and drinking again. So, in a lot of cases, not, the strength and of the recovery is already there. And should be okay. But in some cases, it's going to be something that needs to be addressed head on, and hopefully, it's little, hopefully they don't relapse, but maybe it turns into a little more than a slip, and then it's not a long-term relapse. Rob?
Yeah, so one of the big lines that I found here is, so we think that unless some good and useful purpose is to be served, past occurrences should not be discussed, which makes me think of, the 12 step, or I'm sorry, 9th step, which is step 9, may direct amends to such people whenever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. So we have to use our brains, and we ask God what we should do in each case.
Right.
We families of Alcoholics Anonymous keep few skeletons in the closet. Everyone knows about the other alcoholics' troubles. This is a condition which in ordinary life would produce untold grief. There might be scandalous gossip, laughter at the expense of other people, and a tendency to take advantage of intimate information. Among us, these are rare occurrences. We do talk about each other a great deal, but we almost invariably temper such talk by a spirit of love and tolerance.
So the power of recovery. I'm just going to say it as that, and that the anonymity and the respect and the care that has gone into creating a safe environment for alcoholics to thrive in, and I'm going to use that word again, to thrive in. And the only way that we're successful is our comfort and caring that goes into the ability for us to actually be able to talk about the things that we are supposed to talk about, to get things out into the open, and without recourse of somebody going, coming back on them. So this one paragraph almost seems a bit innocuous at first, but if you really kind of dig into this, you realize that the richness of what AA is. And I'm talking all encompassing, the program and the fellowship, the connections to other alcoholics, the ability to be able to get things that you've got buried deep down inside out and into the open, the liberating feeling that gives you, and the freedom that you then start to be able to focus and concentrate on good things. You're not dwelling on the past. You're not dwelling on the bad. You're able to go and focus on the good. And it's an important point to come out of this. And it's one that I think most people would look at and go, holy cow, how do you guys do that without gossiping, without making fun of, those type of things we just don't do. And it is universal. So it's a testament to the program and the fellowship, but it also is a testament to the individuals who continue to carry that torch and be able to do it. So really kind of just an important message here. Rob?
Love and tolerance, patience, and love. Another principle we observe carefully is that we do not relate intimate experiences of another person unless we are sure he would approve. We find it better when possible to stick to our own stories. A man may criticize or laugh at himself, and it will affect others favorably. But criticism or ridicule coming from another often produces a contrary effect. Members of a family should watch such matters carefully, for one careless, inconsiderate remark has been known to raise the very devil. We alcoholics are sensitive people. It takes some of us a long time to outgrow that serious handicap.
Sure. I've underlined a couple of things here. The first part of this paragraph in the very beginning, another principle we observe carefully is that we do not relate intimate experiences of another person unless we are sure he would approve. It basically is that when you learn something of another person, you treat it with confidence, and you basically keep it to yourself. unless the other person in some manner or fashion has given you direct or indirect permission to be able to discuss that. It is important that the person that is sharing the information feel that they are talking to one person and not to a bunch of other people, especially when that person's got their back turned. The trust is so critical, and the honesty is so critical when we do this. And the other thing that I've underlined here is that we alcoholics are sensitive people. I just put out to the side that this is a major understatement. The fact is, we are very sensitive, and we share common problems. We share common situations. Some of us have unique things that are going on, but I can promise you that anybody that's got any time in Alcoholics Anonymous and recovery, I'm just going to say, hypothetically, a person that's got 10 years of recovery and has been active in Alcoholics Anonymous for that period of time, has heard almost all of it. It takes a while to hear everything, but the fact is, we know what it is to be at a low bottom. We know what it is to be at a high bottom. We know, the problems and the pitfalls that come with drinking. The harsh words, the inaction or action, the negativeness that comes with it. We've all been there, and we've heard so many stories now that we start to kind of feel a kinship and a relationship with everyone in the group, and it's okay. I'm going to say that again. It's okay. So we look for, to try and avoid people that are out to hurt us. That's also understatement. Nobody wants to be hurt, especially the alcoholic. And the sensitive nature of that is that the risk of going back to drinking is high, especially when people are out to hurt us. So it's really, really, really important that the stage is set, ground rules are kind of adhered to, and agreements are made. And we have those, even if it's never been between myself and Marcia, for example. I know that I'm not going to share her story, and she knows that she's not going to share mine. And we mutually agree upon that, just by the nature of being in this program and being in this room every week. So that, it's easy to take that away, and yet, we already know that it's not going to happen. It's just it's one of these underlying themes with regard to Alcoholics Anonymous that is a hard and fast, an absolute hard and fast. Very good. These are very good paragraphs. Rob?
Yeah. The one thing, we alcoholics are sensitive people, which means that resentments are built out of these things. And what's the number one offender for alcoholics? Resentment. So these are killers. So the idea, as my friend Bill has always said, keep your mouth shut about other people. Live and let live. So, which we will see at the end of this chapter. But I always love how Bill always says that, keep your mouth shut about other people. Many alcoholics are enthusiasts. They run to extremes. At the beginning of recovery, a man will take, as a rule, one of two directions. He may either plunge into a frantic attempt to get his feet in business, or he may be so enthralled in his new life that he talks or thinks of little else. In either case, certain family problems will arise. With these, we have had experience galore.
Yeah, so what we're basically doing is getting ourselves into some of these scenarios that are going to be coming up with that. But that is so true. You can call them the 2-week wonder. Once they get 2 weeks under their belt and they see some success with it, the enthusiasm that comes with it, which is, it's just, it's kind of fun to watch and it's fun to see, but I think we all know that there is a reckoning that's still to be had. It certainly is very, very new for a person to have 2 weeks of sobriety, to really start to understand the program, to really have gotten into the steps, and to have gotten a good sponsor that has really kind of shown them a path to recovery, which is going to be something that they have now realized is possible. So having said that, though, I can relate because I know that within that first 2 to 4 weeks, I felt like, okay, I've solved the drink problem. I'm good. I think everything is great now, and I'm enthusiastic, and I'm looking around, and I'll just be honest, the family wasn't there, nor should they have been. Okay. All of the damage that I have done over the years and years of my alcoholism and my drinking and everything was not going to get erased in 2 or 4 weeks. And even to this day, I still have things that I'm working on with members of my family, and even to some extent some friends of mine. But I certainly was ready for everything to be just done. I could flip the switch, lights were a little brighter, colors were a little bit more colorful, music sounded better, food tasted better, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I wanted that. I wanted to go to the top of a mountain and share that with the world. Great. It's kind of like that we say in aviation, and just kind of think of a jet engine. It was all thrust and no vector, is what we say. And so that's a classic example of the 2 week wonder. They're all thrust and no vector. So what you have to do is temper that in order to be able to really embrace and understand what this recovery is all about. So having said that, we're kind of setting things up for that, and we're going to go through some scenarios now as we go along. Rob?
Thanks, Leo. Sorry, I was just sending Wes a text so he knows what page we're on. We're on page 126, Wes. We think it dangerous if he rushes headlong at his economic problem. The family will be affected also, pleasantly at first, as they feel their money troubles are about to be solved, and not so pleasantly as they find themselves neglected. Dad may be tired at night and preoccupied by day. He may take small interest in the children and may show irritation when reproved for his delinquencies. If not irritable, he may seem dull and boring, not gay and affectionate, as the family would like him to be. Mother may complain of inattention. They are all disappointed and often let him feel it. Beginning with such complaints, a barrier arises. He is straining every nerve to make up for lost time. He is striving to recover fortune and reputation and feels he is doing very well.
Sure. This is the word of this paragraph is patience and temperance. I guess there's two words there. First and foremost, you've got an individual that has been remiss in their economic, responsibilities. So the family's economic situation is probably not that strong now that they're not drinking and they've recovered from, the seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. They're ready to jump out there. They're ready to go and jump in and throw themselves at their work. Common, very, very common thing to do. And not that they shouldn't be going out and finding a job, and especially one that they can hold down now and not, cause problems with. But there's got to be a bit of temperance with that. And there's got to be kind of the holistic picture. And this is part of the education that comes with being in this program and reading this book and understanding what's in this book. The second part of this with regard to the family, again, the very fact that somebody sits down with the family and goes through the pages of this chapter and a few others is testament to the fact that they at least have the facts that they need to use, and then maybe they're quite so they don't have that sense of urgency that comes with the attention and affection that they've been starving for so long. Remember, the alcoholic is probably at the point in time that they stopped drinking was probably very isolated, very withdrawn, and not really a member of the family by any stretch of the imagination. And so now that they've kind of gotten back into it, everybody wants their piece. And so it's hard to divide up the alcoholic's attention, their strength, their waking hours. There's only so much brain power that can be expended. And so it's important to basically be able to try and temper that and to be aware of it. I think that, coming to somebody without a complaint and just saying, hey, why don't we try this? instead of that, it's a solution-based conversation that I think that somebody like an alcoholic would be more receptive to, as opposed to the what's going on. You owe us, you never spend time with, et cetera, et cetera. And that causes, that strife that we're trying to avoid. Rob?
Yeah, because when we were drinking, we were isolating, or we were out all the time. We were never with the family. Now the family's looking, well, you've quit drinking, but what has changed? You're still not around. You're not doing anything with the family. They always talk about, when I came into the fellowship, about balance. You got to divvy up the pie properly. There's got to be time for, AA. There's got to be time for family. There's got to be time for work, etc. And dividing that pie is very difficult. And we'll find a lot of times that the pie is never divided equally. There are going to be times where you're going to need to go to AA more often than, you might need to some other times. Why? Because we need the spiritual connection. And we're not getting that spiritual connection. Then there's going to be other times where the family is going to need you. Illness, death, children's activities. When my kids were young, between soccer, karate, football, baseball, you name it, any sport, we keep our kids busy nowadays, because heaven forbid they should be out on the street, or by themselves riding their bike or doing something all by themselves. We keep kids very, very busy. So therefore we're busy doing that. So we got to divvy the pie as best we can. And that is a balancing act that, if you can do it, you're a better man than I am. But we got to take care of the family. Remember, we were gone for a long period of time. We might have been physically there, but mentally we weren't. So now we got to get back into the family. And that's what the family afterwards is all about. Is getting back into the family, where father, takes on the role of being a father again, or trying to. Sometimes mother and children don't think so. Having been neglected and misused in the past, they think father owes them more than they are getting. They wanted to make a fuss over them. They expect him to give them the nice times they used to have before he drank so much, and to show his contrition for what they suffered. But dad doesn't give freely of himself. Resentments grow. He becomes still less communicative. Sometimes he explodes over a trifle. The family is mystified. They criticize, pointing out how he is falling down on his spiritual program.
Yeah, and I think that I'll just start with, until Pete brings up a good point there with the emotional immaturity, and that's across the board. I will tell you that most of my recovery now is over my emotional immaturity, and the fact that I didn't treat things in a manner in which it would have been appropriate for an adult male who is a husband, a father, a brother, a son, etc. I just didn't do it. So it's important for the recovered alcoholic to be in tune with the fact that they have to work on their emotions, and that comes with a higher level of sobriety, a higher plane with that. But so does the family. The family has been shortchanged and has not been able to properly grow and function in a sense that was a mature way of doing so. And so they've got to also understand this emotional immaturity and be able to try and embrace that. Again, there's really, these problems are going to happen. The issues are going to come up, and the challenge is going to be, how is it handled? And that's the important note that we're trying to get here, is that when these type of things rear their ugly head, then how is the family, including the alcoholic, how is that family going to deal with this in a positive, in an emotionally mature way? Rob?
Yeah. This sort of thing can be avoided. Both father and the family are mistaken, though each side may have some justification. It is of little use to argue and only make the impasse worse. The family must realize that Dad, though marvelously improved, is still convalescing. They should be thankful he is sober and able to be of this world once more. Let them praise his progress. Let them remember that his drinking wrought all kinds of damage that may take long to repair. If they sense these things, they will not take so seriously as periods of crankiness, depression, or apathy, which will disappear when there is tolerance, love, and spiritual understanding.
Sure. So what this is basically saying is instead of taking a negative path and arguing and sharing negative feelings, is that one, what are we dealing with right now? Let's think about what it is right now. First and foremost, the alcoholic is sober. Vast improvement over dealing with a person that is not sober. We can all agree with that, but it's hard to put it into practice. Second, why would we start to argue about something? It's easy to fall into that pitfall or that pit and find yourself arguing over a point. Sometimes they're the most trivial points that you can imagine. And if somebody would have just taken that pause, as Rob is famous for kind of expressing, it's the pause that you take, the thought process that you put into play, that is the positive side of things, thinking first and foremost, one, the alcoholic is sober. Two, just how big a deal is this? And why am I upset? And try and figure it out from the perspective of you and not the other person. Remember, we're trying to keep our side of the street clean. Same thing goes for the rest of the family. If they understand the program, they understand enough to know that they own the resentment or the ill feeling that they're having, and that they need to be able to kind of analyze that and rise above it. So it's kind of where we are right now. Just two paths. You've got a positive one, you've got a negative one. How easy is it to try to do the negative? Well, it's darned easy. How hard is it to go the positive? Sometimes it is really hard, because that tug of wanting to lash out, that wanting to point fingers and blame is a very strong emotion, and not one that should be just thought for just a minute. Do I really want to go down the negative path? And if I do, why? Because there's probably if you're being open and honest, there's a good reason, there's a poor reason for wanting to do that, and you should be able to figure that out pretty quickly. So try your best as a family, as an individual, as an alcoholic, to take the positive path. Rob?
I'm going to read the next paragraph now. This next paragraph has one of the most important lines, or one of the most important sentences that I've read in the book. So keep your ears open. The head of the house ought to remember that he is mainly to blame for what befell his home. He can scarcely square the account in his lifetime, but he must see the danger of overconcentration on financial success. Although financial recovery is on the way for many of us, we found we could not place money first. For us, material well-being always followed spiritual progress. It never preceded.
Right. And right there is the statement. For us, material well-being always followed the spiritual progress. It never preceded. So a lot of times people say, if only I could get a car, if only I could pay my utility bills, if only I could make up my rent, et cetera, then I'm going to be okay. Well, no, it's true that those things are going to improve if you're able to pay for them. And it's also important to remember that. But at the same time, this message here is that you really do have to heal spiritually first before you jump into these, probably what I would call the more materialistic points of recovery that should be important, but should come after. Rob?
Yeah, as I say, that is a warning right there. Material well-being always followed spiritual progress. It never preceded. If we put material before our spiritual, we will end up drinking again. So this is a warning that is, and I can't stress it enough. Remember, it's our spiritual well-being that has allowed us to get back into the workforce in full force. It's allowed us to get our family back. It has allowed us to do a lot of other things. We put that spiritual side way to the side. Our connection becomes further and further apart. The malady will return. Therefore, we have no defense against that first drink. The allergy never goes away. We always have that allergy. So therefore, anytime we take that first drink, we're going to end up taking more than one. So therefore, the main problems is in the mind, not in the body. So spiritual connection keep us recovered. Since a home has suffered more than anything else, it is well that a man exert himself there. He is not likely to get far in any direction if he fails to show unselfishness and love under his own roof. We know there are difficult wives and families, but the man who is getting over alcoholism must remember he did much to make them so.
Right. So, yep. I can't, sorry, I lost my train of thought there for just a second. So focusing on the home first. When I say the home, I'm talking about the family and everything that goes with that. Okay. I think that it's important that there is some compartmentalization that goes on. That's easier said than done for some people. It's the point being is that yes, going out and getting a job, holding it down, getting paychecks coming in, money to start flowing into, and correcting the financial strife that any family has probably dealt with in regards to an alcoholic is important. And there has to be time set aside for that. But I don't know if you've heard people will say that they figuratively, like for me, I used to drive about an hour and 20 minutes from work to get back to home. I commuted every day. One of the things that I found that was so nice about that was I was able to process the work day in that drive before I got home, and I was able to get out of my car, go into my home, and I could just kind of focus on the here and the now and what was going on. And that wasn't a perfect scenario, but it was one that I found that I actually did much better at. Having now being in a situation where I work from home, I'm immediately, like, not even a split second, I'm in my home. So when I finish work, I haven't really given myself any time to really process that day. Where I'm going with this is that there should be an amount of time set aside for work. There should be a minimal amount of time to process that day, and then there should be this almost turning of a page. It's kind of figuratively hanging your hat up on a hook as you walk through the front door. And once you put that hat on the hook, work is behind you and the family is in front of you. And that's where the focus should be. And I say all of that to just reinforce what we're trying to get across here. The family is so important. In fact, it's next to your higher power, it's the most important. That's just an opinion on my part, but it is an incredibly important thing. Even if you're singularly there by yourself, you still have to take out time for yourself, not dwell on what's going on at work and trying to do a better job, as we all have found ourselves in from one time or at one time or another. So take the time, do the work, take the time and process, but then set it aside and almost actively set it aside and then start to focus on the family. My recovery was made better when I have and had the support of my family. My family knows all about my alcoholism. They know I'm in recovery. They know that I am better for it, and they are able to interact with me in such a way that is a positive way. There's support. Still dealing with some of the underlying things that happened in the past, and they haven't gone away, and they probably won't for some time more. But the focus is there, and that's what's important. But to be successful, that's a big deal here. If you don't have the support of the family, man, you're on shaky ground. You can rise above it, but just think in terms of it's a taller ladder to climb. It's a higher and steeper mountain to climb, et cetera, et cetera. Rob?
Here's a line. He is not likely to get far in any direction if he fails to show unselfishness and love under his own roof. Remember our problem: selfish and self-centered to the core. That, we think, is the root of our problems. So the alcohol has to be rid of those in order to improve. So now we have to think about other people first. As each member of a resentful family begins to see a shortcoming and admits them to the other, he lays a basis for helpful discussion. These family talks will be constructive if they can be carried on without heated argument, self-pity, self-justification, or resentful criticism. Little by little, mother and children will see they ask too much, and father will see he gives too much, too little. Giving rather than getting will become the guiding principle.
Yeah, just imagine a family, and let's talk a little bit more in the perfect and or utopian kind of situation. If everybody was open and honest and everybody was in a giving mood, and you know could talk about just about anything, and you were free of any resentment, you were free of the fear of being ridiculed and or questioned. Just imagine the possibilities. Now, temper that a bit with the fact that we're all human. We're never going to be perfect, and we all suffer from the human condition. Bottom line is that there's still a lot of positive that can come out of trying your best to get things out in the open, to have those family meetings. And I know what they're like. I've had them in the past. Some were good, some were not so good, but I know the intent was supposed to be a good intent when I was growing up. But having a family meeting is not unlike business. I mean, we have meetings to plan, to check and check progress, check the execution of what problems are we having, what risks are we facing, how do we mitigate those, how do we fix those, that kind of thing. Well, the same thing is true at home. We have a family meeting, we get, are we making progress? Are we having problems? Is the plan that we have put in place being, done in a manner in which everybody is like, yep, we're doing it. We had a problem here, but we corrected that, that type of thing. It's no different. I mean, the subject matter is different, but the process of doing that should be a very similar process. And so why not do that? Excellent idea to bring home some of those strong planning ideals that go into business meetings to have a family meeting. So just a really good thing to try and exercise with the family as a whole. And you demonstrate the positiveness. So the alcoholic, the other parent figure, or the other partner, or other person, they both demonstrate that positiveness. And if there are children involved in a lot of cases, most of them maybe, they'll follow. Rob?
Yeah, these family talks will be constructive if they can be carried on without heated argument, self-pity, self-justification, or resentful criticism. Remember, we do not argue or retaliate. We learn that in the sick man prayer, or how we master resentment. It doesn't do any good. Remember, at this time, when things start getting a little heated, pause. Say to your spouse, I'm getting a little upset, a little, can we take a break, and can we come back and revisit it? Most of the time, it works. Most of the time. Sometimes people don't want to stop, but we come to an understanding and realize that it does work if we use it. So pause when we start feeling that way, because we're going to say something or do something we're going to regret. Then what do we have to do? We have to make amends for it. So do we want to be in the car accident, or do we want to miss the car accident? Something to think about. Assume, on the other hand, that father has, at the outset, a stirring spiritual experience. Overnight, as it were, he is a different man. He becomes a religious enthusiast. He is unable to focus on anything else. As soon as his sobriety begins, to be taken as a matter of course, the family may look at their strange new dad with apprehension, then with irritation. There is talk about spiritual matters morning, noon, and night. You may demand that the family find God in a hurry, or exhibit amazing indifference to them, and say he is above worldly considerations. You may tell mother, who has been religious all her life, that she doesn't know what it's all about, and that she had better get his brand of spirituality while there is yet time.
Yeah, the first word that comes to mind with this paragraph is alienation. Bottom line is even too much of a good thing is still too much. So kind of something to live by. It's it's a tough thing to be able to deal with, and really you're trying to pull the reins back a little bit on in this case dad, because he's become overzealous with regard to the spiritual experience that he's had. And just real quick, there we go. There you go, V. We're on page 128. So with that, it can cause a lot of irritation. You've got this very zealous person that's just crazy about a particular topic or thing, and it's like your favorite song. You listen to it on the radio, you enjoy listening to it probably 4, 5, 6 times, but after about the 20th time, all of a sudden, even though it might be still one of your favorite songs, you do grow tired of it. So the idea here is how do you temper the spiritual experience that the alcoholic has had, and be able to get them to refocus on some of the other things that are so important to the recovery of not only the alcoholic but of the family as well. And that's a challenge in and of itself. And I think we're going to probably find out what Bill would say and how he would address it as we go along here.
And that's what I love about Bill. He says something, and then he gives us the answer right afterwards. When Father takes this tack, the family may react unfavorably. They may be jealous of a God who has stolen Dad's affections. While grateful that he drinks no more, they may not like the idea that God has accomplished a miracle where they failed. They often forget Father was beyond human aid. They may not see why their love and devotion did not straighten him out. Dad is not so spiritual after all, they say. If he means to right his past wrong, why all of this concern for everyone in the world but his family? What about his talk that God will take care of them? They suspect Father is a bit balmy.
Yeah, and that's kind of a they feel like they've been left out. The alcoholic is taking for granted that the family is just going to follow along. The family is going to understand. The family is going to know what this spiritual experience is all about and embrace it. Not so fast. So making an assumption like that is obviously where we're going here is a pitfall. And so the idea is going to be, how do you, and this is back to my 3s, and that is focus on the family, you persuade through involvement, and you earn the right to advance. So what we're going to do is we need to get that focus on what is important here, and that is the family. Okay. Once we get that focus on the family, how are we going to persuade the alcoholic? Well, we're going to involve the alcoholic. We're going to plan activities that in some manner or fashion are going to be positive. They're going to be helpful. They're going to be in a way full of positive love and caring, etc. Maybe it's just a grilling out or a barbecue. Maybe it's going to throw a celebration party. If this person is so, enthralled with their spiritual recovery and other people and stuff, why not throw a celebratory party, even if and make it intimate, just the family, and kind of focus on the individual. And then with that, actually start to have this sharing moment where the rest of the family has an opportunity to say a few things and that type of stuff. It's just an idea, but the point being is that persuading somebody through involvement means that you're going to have to realize what's important to them, use that to a positive advantage of getting them to really kind of open up about it, but also be in a mode where they are receptive to hearing other things, and slowly try to pull that person over. And once you've done that, then you've earned the right to advance and really start to kind of embrace, put your arm around, I say tug, you coax the person to start doing other activities and get those activities to be a part of their recovery as well. And make it so that the recovery of the family is so important to the recovery of an alcoholic. There's no way you can overemphasize that. And that's what we're trying to say here. Rob?
Yeah, this is a great paragraph. And the fact that it reminds me of what drives my wife crazy with me is that somebody will recommend something. You know what? You should eat broccoli because broccoli is good for you. So I will come home and I'll say to my wife, we should have broccoli. She goes, I've been telling you that for months. You never listen. You never, but somebody else says something, you take their point of view, so that's what it reminds me of. And it's so true in the fact that, it said earlier in the book, she's such a sweet girl. I would think he would quit for her. If we could, we would have, but we were past that. And it's again, Bill bringing out the fact that, we're beyond human aid. We needed an entire psychic change in order for us to change, but hey, that's what it reminded me of. He is not so unbalanced as they might think. Many of us have experienced adulation. We have indulged in spiritual intoxication. Like a gaunt prospector, belt drawn in over the last ounce of food, our pick struck gold. Joy at our release from a lifetime of frustration knew no bounds. Father feels he has struck something better than gold. For a time, he may try to hug the new treasure to himself. He may not see at once that he has barely scratched a limitless load, which will pay dividends only if he minds it for the rest of his life and insists on giving away the entire product.
Yeah, so some kind of story here. You've got the striking gold. You're at your last, the last ounce of strength that you've got, and then boom, you finally hit the mother load. It's the same thing kind of happens here. You're at a bottom, you're an alcoholic, you have the spiritual experience, and all of a sudden you've hit the mother load. Well, guess what? It's even better when you share that with the family. And that's the important message that they're trying to get out here, is that this is to be embraced. It should be supported, and but it should be understood, and it should be shared throughout the rest of the family. It's pretty clear. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about that right here, but I just basically, it's important for the alcoholic to realize that this is a lifelong journey. It's not a one and done. And that's the important point. Same thing for the family. This is going to be a process, and they need to get on board with it as much as the alcoholic does. But that means that there's going to be a share of the success, the good, the positive, etc. So with that, I think what we'll do is we'll stop right there. I'll ask Bill to give us a little bit of insight if he doesn't mind, and then we'll open it up for some discussion.
Yeah, hi, this is Bill, alcoholic from New Jersey. Thanks a lot, Leo and Rob. Did a real good job here. This chapter, The Family Afterwards, this is actually part of step 12, practicing these principles in all our affairs. And that's what Bill's trying to show us how to do here, is trying to show us this. And in the beginning, the first thing that you talked about was the dark past. And we can use our dark past to help others. If you learn something from your past, it's not a failure. So that's the point he's trying to get across to us here. And on page 125, on the first new paragraph, the last line, it says, "But we almost invariably temper such talk by a spirit of love and tolerance." They tell us that in step 10. Bill's got step 10 snuck in here. It says in step 10, love and tolerance of others is our code. So he's kind of giving us a hint or instructions on how we're supposed to live in step 10. We're supposed to have love and tolerance for others. Then the next paragraph, it says, another principle we observe carefully. So he's talking about principles in this chapter. He's like giving us hints or instructions on how to use step 12, the last part of step 12. Practice these principles in all our affairs. That's what we're supposed to do. He's talking to the family afterwards, but he's also giving instructions to the alcoholic. He's telling us what we're supposed to do here. And that's paragraph where he tells us we're not supposed to talk about other people. Like Rob said, and like I always say, in other words, keep your mouth shut when it comes to other people. Because we alcoholics, like Leo pointed out, we're very sensitive people. And if you start talking about someone else, they're going to get a resentment. Then they're going to retaliate. They're going to step on your toes. You're going to get a resentment, and things are going to snowball out right out the window. So the best thing is don't talk about other people in AA unless they already told you it's okay to talk about them, because it's just going to start trouble somewhere down the line. And he's just giving the family some instruction here on how they should deal with the alcoholic and what they should do. And he's also, like I said, he's giving the alcoholic instructions here on what we're supposed to do. He's telling us we're supposed to have balance. We just can't go berserk trying to stay sober. We have to take care of our family also, because if we just do one thing and not another, it's not going to work right. And he told us, it's of little use to argue, and only makes the impasse worse. In other words, do I want to be right or do I want to be happy? If I'm going to argue with my family about something, even if I'm right, it's not going to turn out good, because we're going to have an argument. I need to just, forget that stuff and leave it alone. I'm supposed to be trying to get better, and I'm supposed to be trying to avoid problems. I'm not supposed to be trying to make problems. That's pretty much what he's telling us here. He's just giving us instructions here on how we should deal with the family and how the family should deal with us. And then like when we got down to the end where we were, it says, on page 129, he has barely scratched the limitless load, which will pay dividends only if he mines it for the rest of his life and insists on giving away the entire product. He's telling us we have to give it away to keep it. I know that sounds backwards and doesn't make sense, but when you do it, you'll realize how it works. When we give this away, it makes it easier for us to keep. If we don't give it away, we're not going to keep it. That's all I got. Thanks a lot for letting me share.
Thanks very much, Bill. Brilliant as always.
Yep. All right. We are at the end here. Let's go ahead and close with the Serenity Prayer, Rob, and then we'll open things up.
You got it, my friend. Serenity Prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference.